Hello, hello, fearless listeners. Are you ready for another episode of Let Fear Bounce? It's the podcast that's all about conquering challenges and facing our fears. I'm your host, Kim Langling, and each week we'll dive into inspiring stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you turn your fear into your greatest ally. So sit back, relax, grab that cup of coffee, and let's discover how to make fear our bouncing board towards a life filled with endless possibilities right here on Let Fear Bounce. Welcome back to another episode of Let Fear Bounce, folks. This is Kim Langling, your host. Now, today's episode is part 2 of my amazing conversation with Ruth Thompson, the founder of the Anna Shelter, a no-kill animal shelter located in Erie, Pennsylvania. And this week's episode starts off with talking about her fears and how she lets them bounce. So folks, grab that cup of coffee, sit back, relax, and listen in to the show.
Got faith, bigger faith than I have fear. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm scared. There's a lot of times I'm sascared and a lot of times, but I won't let it stop me. I figure out a way around it and I keep going. One day, it's funny because, I learned through going through some of my therapy, it was like, some days people say one day at a time. Well, I mean, there was a time when I was living, moment to moment and breath to breath, and, but I kept on moving. Like I kept going forward and, here we are.
And my therapist.
I hate saying that, but then I'm like, well, kind of, whatever. Everybody's going.
Well, you know what though? There's so many people sitting out there that are afraid to share stuff like that. I want people to hear my truth.
Yeah.
But one thing that my therapist shared with me a while ago, and I literally have it written on a sticky note above my laptop. So it's on the wall. So as soon as I sit down, it's the first thing I see. And it says, my success rate for getting through the tough shit is 100%.
Yeah. Well, amen.
And she said that to me one day and she goes, Kim, look at all the stuff that you've gone through. And I'm like, I don't want to look at it today. Had my little anger hat on. I don't want to look at it today. And she says, no, I want you to look at it. She goes, because you have a 100% success rate or getting through it because you're still here.
Exactly.
How can you get any better than a 100% success rate? She goes, so you've got to look at it that way.
Yep, exactly.
That sentence, I'm telling you, for me anyway, looking at that sticky note, and I'm pointing at it right now, no one can see me doing it, but looking at that every day, I'm like, all right, I got my big girl panties pulled up. We're gonna take this day on.
Yeah. And I know there's people that hate when I say it, but I always say like, we got this. Like, that's one of my catchphrases at the shelter. And I love hearing the girls regurgitate. Like there's times when I'll hear them talking to each other and I'm like, oh my God, these little mini me's. And I'm so thankful because I mean, some of them are very impressionable. They're the 18 to 25-year-olds, and I hear them giving each other pep talks and saying like, okay, guys, we got this, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like if I can, that teachable moment, like if they're remembering and emulating something I said or did, like it just feels so good that I'm like making that impact. And corny, I know it sounds but like if I can leave that legacy on them and maybe that'll help them in whatever, whether it's work or relationships or whatever. And yeah, we have some deep talks at the shelter. Like I get these girls to go deep, girls and guys. We've got some great guys that work for us too. But to just expand their thinking and
just to simply say we've got this when there are so many who wouldn't even be able to mumble that.
Yeah. It's like
they would just let themselves fall into this state just because they don't have that positive reinforcement in their lives.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm so thankful for good parents. I mean, my mom and dad, you can't teach a work ethic. And I'm the youngest of 7. And I mean, we all work hard and I'm so proud of my family, but my parents, like just so thankful for the work ethic, for the morals, the ethics, what they instilled in me. And then they lived it, and it breaks my heart. I have staff members and tenants that don't have those examples. So if I can be that example to them, I want to be like that. I want that to be my thing too. So yeah, we got this. And then the other one I love is successful people take risks. I probably mutter that one a couple times a week when I'm afraid to do something new. And then another one, thank God, I hate social media for myself. Like I want people to know what I'm doing, but or people like want to know what you eat. Like, okay, well, you don't need to know what I had for dinner. But I just got a memory Facebook shared with me, and it said, instead of worrying about what could go wrong, get excited about what could go right. And I love that one because, yeah, we waste I read something, 85% of what you worry about in the future never happens. So
Right.
like, I tell the girls out of the shelter all the time, like they'll be like, well, what if we get there and this is what we find? I'm like, what if it's not that? Like, let's not
Right.
waste the energy on something that may not be. If we get there and that's what we encounter, okay, then we're going to deal with it that moment. But we're not going to waste our energy driving there thinking of all the horrible things. It might be
Right.
okay. We
Right.
might get there and it might be cool.
You're setting the wrong tone if you do
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, a
So
friend of mine, a dear, dear lady, she was actually my fourth grade teacher.
oh, neat.
And she's a good friend of mine now. And she's a tremendous fabric artist. She's just truly talented. She gave me a piece of fabric art that she made. It was just simply the word trust. And
Mm,
when she gave it to me, she said, God has laid you on my heart. And he also told me I'm supposed to give this to you. And I said, well, it's beautiful. Why is the word trust? And she said, I don't know what's going on in your life. She goes, but when I reached out to you, I knew I had to do this and I had to share this with you. And this is the message. You cannot trust and worry at the same time.
dude, that's impactful. That's big.
I know. And the
That's
thing
big.
is, I hadn't heard from her or seen her in months and months. And this was years ago. And she said, if you've got time when you're out and about or if on your lunch hour, stop by my shop. I have something for you. It was just a seemingly random phone call from her.
Not at all.
Right.
Divine
And she said,
intervention.
yeah, she said, God has laid your name on my heart. And the word trust was just so prevalent. So she made this piece of fabric and it's framed. She gave it to me framed and everything. And it hangs on my wall in my dining room.
Oh, that's
So each
fantastic.
night when I sit down to eat dinner, I can look up and see the word trust.
That is fantastic. That gave me goosebumps. I love
It's
that.
amazing. Yeah. And
Yeah.
how you had said earlier, how people are put in your lives could be for a minute. Maybe it's just for, that quick drop off, but that person was there for a reason.
Yes. Season, reason, lifetime.
Yes,
I mean, I'm always looking
exactly.
at relationships and I'm like, okay, God, where does this person fit into my life? Season, reason, lifetime. And yeah, it's just so fascinating to watch that. And that's I sometimes, and again, not to like harp on the faith thing, but people that don't like, how do you get through a day? Like, how do you get through the day if you don't have something to
I
believe
think there's
in?
a lot of I think there's a lot of people that carry a lot of weight that they don't need to. And a
Yeah.
lot of it, might be bitterness, loneliness,
Yeah.
hopelessness, depression, anxiety. Now,
Yeah. Let it go.
I carry some of that with me sometimes because that
Sure.
just comes with PTSD,
Right.
just
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
joy of it. But I also now can recognize it, look at it, recognize it, call it out for what it is, and deal with it.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of it. I just was talking to somebody and she said something to me and same thing. It hit me so hard. She said, you've got to remember to speak from your heart and not from your ego. And I literally, I acted like, oh yeah, okay, good thinking. I like that. And then I'm like, what the hell did that mean? So I went and I Googled it. I was like, what does that mean? And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks because I tend to be the kind of person that I want everybody to be happy. I don't want anybody to be hurting. I don't, I want to be the peacekeeper and so I was not following my heart and not speaking from my heart. And what a difference that makes when you speak your truth, and when you get that out there. And I think people respect it. And I think respect is so important. So yeah, this
And I
is
think you have to respect yourself first.
yeah, and that's a hard one, especially I think caregivers and people like me. I went to a compassion fatigue seminar and it was put on by one of the hospitals. My brother is a physician and he invited me. So I was around like nurses and doctors, but my brother had gone through it and he was like, Ruth, this is so you, like you need to be here. And it talked about how caregivers, we have very low boundaries because we are constantly bringing people in and wanting to take care of them and wanting to help them. Like I consider myself much better as a partner. Like I love having someone or something. When I say to take care of, I don't mean like, I want to be your mother, but I want to like help you and be there for you. And it was just such a cool thing because there are people that don't respect our boundaries and that's where we get taken advantage of and we stop speaking our truth and we start putting our needs I've said a million times, like, well, I'll take the hurt and not let someone else hurt. I'll just take the hurt on. And, that literally caused me, believe it or not, which I'm sure you'll understand, a physical issue. And I went to see a cardiologist, and so stupid. I had to have a surgery. Went to UPMC in Pittsburgh, and they do like this full body scan. And so the doctor said, well, I have good news. I can remove what's going on. I don't think it's a big deal. But did anybody tell you that you have an enlarged heart? And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I really want you to see a cardiologist prior to coming for the surgery. So I went to this cardiologist, and thank God I was his last appointment of the day. This man was amazing. Again, this guy was sent by God, because it was the last appointment of the day. And he literally like took his glasses off and he sat down and he's like, we need to talk about this. He's like, this is not hereditary. This is not genetic. He's like, there's a reason your heart is beating, incorrectly, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure there were like way more medical terms, but it ended up that I had let stress and worry and overcompensating and taking on so many other people's problems and burdens that I had literally caused my heart to have an enlarged aorta. And he's like, the good news is, we can stop it from getting bigger. He said, we can't stop it. We can't shrink it, but we can stop it from getting bigger. And I mean, just that guy, like, I'm not kidding you. I spent almost 2 hours. Like, his nurses were leaving for the day, and he's just like, no, I'm going to hang out here with Ruth. Like, we had the most amazing conversation. And today, to this day, we still email. I'll just get a random email from him because he's in Pittsburgh, and he'll be like, how you doing? How's it going? My heart's great. I'm in great shape. But it was getting rid of all that stress and all that angst and all that taking on so many other people's problems. And again, it was a personal thing. It wasn't anything with my professional life, but yeah, I mean, if we can help people in that too, like, you got to let that stuff go. You can't take that stuff on.
And at least recognize, I had to do the same thing. It was just constant. And mine is, I'm helping people, I'm helping veterans. And I did it for so long.
Yeah. You said 24 years.
Yeah. And that's just one thing of what we do. That's the one that I kept.
Wow.
I cut a lot out.
Yeah.
Because I was getting phone calls just like you, 24/7.
Yeah.
Working with homeless veterans or those that are soon to be homeless. A lot of them have so many issues, many, many issues. And I'm the sole female. And so a lot of times I would have to be making extra calls like, hey, I need somebody to come with me. I can't walk into this situation by myself. And, so there's a lot of that. There was so much for probably about 15 years I did that. And then I realized I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah. That's your body begging you to stop.
I already had a marriage fall apart and, had went through a divorce, had a couple people in my family, just naturally pass away. And there was a whole lot of stuff that happened all at once that literally brought me to my knees.
Yeah.
I was on my knees on my living room floor, sobbing, thinking I was losing my mind.
Yes. Oh my God. We are. Yes.
And I realized I wasn't. It took a while though. And that's actually when I came to my faith. I'm a late bloomer. I didn't come to my faith until my mid 30s.
Okay.
I was not raised in the church or with church going family members. Wasn't raised that way, but God always finds a way to get to you.
Yeah. He'll get you.
He found me on my knees on my living room floor. But when it felt like life was just crushing me. And then I realized, wow, I've got to put up some boundaries. I've got to tighten up my tribe circle.
Yeah.
Which means which meant some had to go.
Yeah.
And
that's okay.
And that's okay. Yes, it's okay. And you can't take it personal when people get angry for your decisions for your own well-being.
Right.
It's like,
and that's hard.
Your anger, that's all about you, dear heart. It has nothing to do with me. I know what's best for me. You don't. So, and I had to be able to do that with confidence and not let others' opinions sway me. And so, that was probably, well, I think it was right around the time I turned 50. So 5-6 years ago, I just said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And they're like, what do you mean you can't? You've always done it.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And I think it's part of probably our age. And I when I turned 50, it was 2 years ago, I'm 52. And I said to the girls at the shelter, I said, you know what? The next 50 years are going to be all about me. Like, I'm going to start making what makes Ruth happy. And you know what was really sad, Kim? I didn't remember. I couldn't remember what makes Ruth happy. Like,
Took a while
what?
to
And
think about it, didn't it?
yeah. And I was like, okay, my horses, my dogs, like, but like, what makes me happy? And and it was scary. So it's funny because it's taken me 2 years, but I'm finally like on a path where I feel like, but yeah, I've hurt some people and I've, had to set boundaries and I've had to make decisions that I knew in my heart were the right decisions for me. And, and that was hard because I don't like hurting people and I don't, and it crushes me. But yeah, my choices were either I'm unhappy so that other people think I'm happy, or I truly make some decisions and somebody said to me, between now and dead, and it hit me. Like I was like, wow, like, like, okay, this is it,
Right.
so here I
And you had a
am.
good point there. You had to think about what made you happy.
Yeah,
I had to sit there for a while and I'm like, okay, for the last so many years, I've just been mom. I've been a wife. I've been a mom. Who's Kim?
yeah, yeah,
It took me, actually, it took me quite a few months to figure out who Kim was again.
yeah,
And
yeah,
what is it that brings me joy? Kim, what do you do for yourself to have fun or to relax? And I literally had no answer.
yeah. I get it. I 100%.
And that was the spark
Yeah,
that got me thinking, wow, Kim, if you keep going the way you're going, you're going to be so unhealthy by the time you're 50 or by the time you're
yeah,
60, or retirement age comes and you're going to be too sick to do anything.
right. Yeah, when I was asked the same question, I was like, "Well, sometimes I take a bath, and I was like, that's so pathetic. Like, oh my God, like I take a bath. Like, okay, like, but yeah, it is. And I thank God, I guess, that we got here. And I say that too, like, if I can save anybody else, like the trouble, like just don't do what I did. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
learn now. Like my daughter, I'm telling you. So my daughter's amazing. And it's funny, I adopted her when she was 5. And so I've had friends say, like, when were you pregnant? I'm like, oh, never. But she has like those little nuggets of wisdom. Like there have been times where like she'll say something and I'm like, oh my God, like who are you? Like again, season, reason, lifetime.
Right.
She just said something to me the other day and God, Rosie, like this is like, yeah, you're right. Like I need to think like that more. I'm just so proud that she already as a woman is so much further along than I was at 29. I was a huge people pleaser and constantly like, what does somebody want? What do they want me to be? Where do, and man, my daughter is resolute. Like, this is who I am. Like me or don't like me. This is me. And oh my God, I love that about her. And I admire that. And I joke with her. I'm like, Rosie, you need a little of my softness and I need a little of your hardness. Cause I mean, when she was going through dating guys, I mean, she'd break up with them at the drop of a hat and just be like, "Yep, wasn't working. I didn't like him." Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, "Was he sad? Like, did you talk?" She's like, "Mom, I'm done. Like, I don't need to call him again." Like, and I was like, "Well, maybe just make sure he's okay." And she's like, "No, Mom, he's fine. He's an adult. He'll be fine." I was like, "Rosie, like, how do you do that?"
Yeah.
But she did it, and like, I'm so proud of her that she is who she is, and I mean, she's pulls off purple hair and does all, and she doesn't. She's cool with it. She does her thing, and she's who she is, and so yeah, I'm so proud of her, but I wish I was a little more like her.
I'm more like that. Have always been kind of my own person, even growing up,
Yeah,
which was bumpy. It was bumpy for me. I was very outspoken and always sticking up for the underdog,
yeah,
always.
that's awesome.
And when you're younger, you don't know how to do that the right way.
Yeah,
And where I grew up at for, I don't know, maybe it was the time, I don't know, but I had a couple friends that were going through some really awful stuff. They tell you when you're younger, just go to adult, go talk to an adult. But then when you go to talk to the adults, they're like, oh, that's a family situation. We can't
yeah.
interfere in
We're not
that.
talking about that.
So
Yeah.
nothing was ever done. Might have been the time that I grew up in. So my mouth, I got in trouble for what would come out of my mouth. And I'd always get in trouble for it. But no one else is doing anything. and I'm
Yeah.
only 15. You're telling me I'm supposed to go an adult, and I come to you and you don't do anything, so I was always kind of like, the loud one, in your face one. But it was always done with the right heart in mind. I wasn't trying to be a troublemaker. I was just trying to be heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah. I mean, and now hopefully you can be that adult that listens. And I think,
And I have found, yes. And now
yeah,
I am that person that I'll be like, I'll be like, okay, I not only see you, sweetie, but I hear you too.
I hear you. Yeah. I love that because I've said that before. Like, are you looking at me? Do you see me? Do you hear me? Like, yeah, there's a huge difference when people actually hear what you're saying, are listening to
Right.
what you're saying. And I can validate you and I can let
Yes.
you know that you have been heard and that I can understand. And yeah, and sometimes even if you can't understand, respect what they're saying. And sometimes just having somebody dump their stuff on you is enough, then they can kind
Right.
of move on. That word
Right.
vomit.
And then there's oftentimes, especially with younger folks, I found, for whatever reason, people open up. They'll dump on me, complete strangers,
Yeah, I know.
in a grocery store, and
We are the same person.
you'll be
Yeah,
like,
we are the
wow,
same
that was
person.
a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is that attracts that to me, because I'm often saying, why does that happen? And I'll get in the car and be like, okay, God, thank you for having that person find
Yeah,
me. I hope I was able to help them. Now help me take that weight that they just put on my shoulders off.
exactly.
I carry
Yeah,
it. And
you
that's another
can.
reason I had to separate myself from so much, because I carried way too much.
Yeah. I feel like and that's why when the whole pandemic thing, I hated, like, I'm a hugger. Like, I'm a touch person. Like, touch is one of my love languages. Like, I need to touch. And I mean, even when COVID, I was like, I probably hug 10 people a day at the shelter. Somebody's coming in, they've got an issue or problem, like, and I'll hug them and say, like, I'll pray for you. Like, I'll keep you in my prayers. And there are some people that don't know what to say. They're kind of like, oh, and then other people are like, thank you, like, please, will you? And I always ask for their first name. Or lady came in today, she had to surrender 2 dogs, and she said, my husband was just diagnosed, he's terminally ill, I have to go live with my daughter, I can't take my 2 dogs. So obviously I had her name because of the paperwork, and I said, what's your husband's name? And she kind of looked at me, and I said, I want to be able to pray for both of you. And like, she just started weeping in the office, and so I was like hugging her. And but I just think that's so important to just have that moment of, not just sharing my faith, but sharing the touch, like the human contact. Like,
Right.
I think there's so much value to that.
Just brought up a great thing. And so I know we kind of veered off of the shelter, but I
Okay.
love
It's
how
okay.
these conversations
It's
go on this
okay.
show.
Yeah.
They're going exactly the way it's supposed to
The
go.
way they're supposed to.
But you just mentioned that, this beautiful soul came in and had to surrender her 2 dogs because wasn't a neglect case. It wasn't an
No.
abuse case. It was a heart-wrenching thing for her,
Yeah.
because her
Horrible.
husband's diagnosed with a terminal illness and she's no longer to be able to care for the dogs. I mean, and how I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that probably happens way more than people realize.
All the time. It's awful. And everybody's got a story. And one of the things that I have taught the girls, and I'm proud of us at our shelter, we do not judge. It is a judgment-free zone, because just because someone comes in to surrender their pet and they're stone-faced and they're signing the papers and they're not saying anything, I'm like, you guys don't know. She might have sat in her car for 2 hours, bawling her eyes out, but she's not that person in public. So she comes in here, because I would have staff members say, like, oh, that lady, I can't believe she's just doing this. Well, I'm like, yeah, you don't know. This might have been the worst day of her life. She might be going through some shit at home. And it's not for us to judge. We don't do
Right.
that. I refuse. Like, I'm adamant that they don't act like that. We
And
don't judge
life
people. That's not my
circumstances could
job.
have changed.
Yeah.
Maybe they financially can't take care of that animal anymore.
Exactly. And they're
You
making
just
the
don't
best
know.
decision. They're right. They're not dumping it in the woods. They're not giving it away free on Craigslist. They're
Right.
bringing it to us. That's what we're here for. So yeah, I don't ever want to judge. That's not my job.
That's another. I'm glad you mentioned that. Please don't list animals for free on Craigslist, people.
No, I
Whoever's
literally,
listening,
so
please don't do that. Please
let
don't
me
do
tell
that.
you, I remember, like, people would say, oh, those animals are going to be, oh, I would say that's not true. Nobody does that. I sat in a court hearing for 4 days and listened to testimony and read text messages between dog fighters who would send their girlfriends, free beagle on Craigslist. And the guy said to the girlfriend, don't worry if they say the dog bites or pees in the house. He'll be in the dirt by the end of the night, literally using this dog as a bait dog. And I read those over and over, how many times they were going to get the free dog, this, and I was like, oh my God. And I also feel like you got to have some skin in the game. Owning an animal is not a right, it's a privilege. And, you've got to know that they cost money. There's value to them. And so, and at our shelter, everything's surgically altered. They're microchipped, they're current on their vaccines, everything's done prior to them leaving. So, what would cost you $400 to $600 at your veterinarian, which, and some people say, well, I wouldn't go to a vet. Well, then you're an irresponsible pet owner. Like, you shouldn't have a pet if you're not going to do all those things. So, the $150 or the $200 adoption fee, gets you quite a lot of bang for your buck. You're essentially getting a free dog. You're getting all the medical stuff done to it already. Right. So,
and the thing is, I always say to folks, because I firmly believe in adopting animals, and my dogs have all been adopted.
Thank you.
You have to make sure it's a commitment for that pet's lifetime.
Yeah.
It's not something you ever do on a whim. Oh, I want a puppy. It's a commitment for that pet's lifetime. So you have to make sure that you are physically, mentally, and financially able to care for that pet's lifetime.
I say that every day. Do you have the resources necessary? And people will go, oh, I have plenty of money. I'm like, no. Do you have time? Do you have energy? Do you have patience? Like, these are resources. Yes, finances is a resource, but do you have all the resources necessary to bring this animal home? Because we go by the 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months rule. Like, there's an adjustment period. I was just going to say
333.
Yeah, there's an adjustment period. Like, are you going to be patient? Like, right. Are you going to put up with what's going on to help them settle? But again, retention's big to me, and I'm all about, helping people get through those times. So, but yeah, I call it like it is, and I deny adoptions. I mean, I'm the person that people get pissed at and fire off nasty stuff on Facebook, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm so proud of us. We don't shut off reviews. We don't shut off comments. Like, you want to run your mouth and say something bad about me? Go ahead. Like,
that's
everyone's
just a reflection of who that person is.
They are entitled to their opinion. Right. And, I do take the shelter very personal. It is very much a part of who I am. But if they had a bad experience, I want to know about it. But sometimes the bad experience is justified, like sometimes, I turned you down for a reason, and 20 years ago might I have been a little more, oh, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. But now I'm like 20 years in, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. Like, we're doing this my way,
And and it's your right to turn someone down, because you're not going to hand an animal over to just anyone.
That's my animal until I feel like going with you is a better option.
Right.
Or as good of an option as being with me. Like, I firmly believe that. And we did just over 8,000 animals last year. And I mean, again, I send them off, praying that God does his, because we can't guarantee that everything's going to work out. We can't guarantee the same thing with humans and children. And, but I put them out there with, under God's guide, and, hopefully things work out. And yeah, so far so good, girl. It'll be it's been a long time, but yeah, so far
it's working. Do the best that you can and just keep on keeping on.
All we can do, the best you can do every day. Yeah,
that's right. But I do want to get ready to wrap up here, and I ask all of my guests to toss out a nugget of hope to the listeners out there today. So what would your nugget of hope be that you want to toss out there?
My nugget of hope would be just the one day at a time. As corny as that sounds, for me, it's one day, one animal at a time. And I truly live that. But I think just in every day, just one day at a time, don't worry about what happened in the past. Don't worry about what's going to happen in the future. Just, somebody said to me one time, it's called the present because it's a gift. And I truly believe that. So stay right where you're at, one day at a time, and get it done.
That's right. Perfect. And you can't trust and worry at the same time.
And I love that. I'm going to use that.
This has been so awesome. Thank you so much for being my guest. Let folks know, and if all of this will be in the show notes, folks, how to get in touch and make donations and stuff like that. But share the website with the listeners out there if you would.
Yeah, it's theannashelter.com. So it is the word THE and then Anna Shelter, Anna just like a girl's name.com. Big social media presence, TikTok, which I have no idea how to use that, but TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, that new X thing. The girls are all over some of that stuff. So yeah, follow us on social media. Sharing our posts is a huge way to help us. It doesn't cost you any money. So anything that you can do to help, talk about the shelter, talk about what we do, that helps. So yeah,
You
that's
can
where
you
you
can
find us.
make donations right through the website as well,
Through the
correct?
website. Yep, absolutely. We have Venmo, PayPal, all those safe ways to donate.
Now, another thing, you have donations that through your website and such that they come from worldwide. It's not just from
Yeah.
this local area. And of course, this episode is out there for the world,
Yeah,
on
that's awesome.
all of the podcast listening platforms as well as YouTube. So it's a wide range of folks. So you can, if you feel that your heart's leading you to help out,
Yeah,
you want to help the Anna Shelter, visit the website, which is
yeah.
theannashelter.com, and you can donate right through there. And you regularly do get donations from around the world.
Oh my gosh, crazy. We had a horse rescue not that long ago, and I was getting donations from Australia. Somehow it got shared to some Australian news story. But yeah, we've had donations from Dubai, crazy, crazy places that I've never even heard of. So yeah, we're so blessed. I can't, yeah. That's what makes me know, like, okay, I am doing exactly what I'm supposed
Right.
to do. This
Right.
is right. So
All right. Well, Ruth, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for spending so
thank
much
you
time with
for
me
having
today.
me. I can't wait to see you again.
When we're going to make that happen.
I can't wait. I would
Because
love
we
that.
can. Because we can.
That's right, Kim. Yes.
Usually my guests are from like thousands of miles away. So
No, I'm like right here. We're gonna go for coffee soon.
yeah, you're kind of in my backyard. So it's
Love it.
perfect.
Love it.
All right. Well, thank you once again for
You're
being my
welcome.
guest on
Thank
Let Fear
you.
Mount. And everybody out there, I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed having this conversation with Ruth. And I hope you learned a few things and you're able to tuck that nugget in your pocket and carry with you that Ruth shared. And that's about it. We're gonna wrap it up for today. This is Kim Langling, your host of Let Fear Bounce. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed. And that is a wrap, my fearless friends. Thanks for bouncing along with me on another episode of Let Fear Bounce. I hope you're feeling a bit motivated and ready to take on any challenge that might come your way in the coming days. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Let Fear Bounce. Tune in each week for your dose of inspiration from my amazing guests from all over the world. So until next time, keep bouncing forward and stay fearless, my friends. Everybody be well, stay well, and above all, be blessed.